What's up, everybody? I'm back, rejuvenated and ready to get started on some more cabinetry builds. It's now Monday, so don't go anywhere. We're going to build 2 cabinets for the table saw, one to go here and one to go underneath the table saw, housing my desk collection. You don't want to miss it. Okay, we're going to start with cabinet 1, which is the end cabinet that's going to go on the end of the table saw. It's going to include 3 drawers, possibly 4, depending on how deep or shallow that I want them. Now it's time to cut it to height, which is 28 3/4 inches. I've adjusted the fence accordingly, and I put a little clamp here on my crosscut sled to keep the board from just tilting up like this, because I got a lot of overhang down here. Alright, now the top is going to be a different kind of construction than what we use for the pass-through cabinetry. The reason for that is the pass-through cabinetry needed to be very rigid and stiff because there's no back to it. Now this one, on the other hand, it's going to be turned on its end and screwed to the adjacent cabinet that's going to be sitting next to it. So the top doesn't necessarily have to be solid. So what we're going to do is make a dust frame kind of construction for the top that's going to span from the front as well as the back, and then there's going to be 2 sides and possibly a middle because this is kind of a long cabinet. First order of business is to cut some 3-inch strips out of some scrap plywood that I have here, and then I'll take you through the process on how to make that dust frame. Now we're just going to put our dado stack in at a 1/4 inch thickness. Use our fence with a sacrificial piece to kind of get a depth, and then use a feather board to hold everything in place and raise the blade up to a 1/2 inch. Then we're just going to cut the board. After we run it through, we're going to flip it around end for end and then run it through again. This will center it completely. Okay, now it's time to cut the side pieces for the dust frame. Now, the way this is going to be assembled is that these are going to sit along the side of the cabinetry. These are going to have a tongue on them. They're going to go inside of a groove that's going to get cut inside those front and back pieces. So if you were using pocket screw joinery, you wouldn't have to accommodate for a tongue. But I'm all about joinery. I like it. Pocket screws, it has its place, but I don't really want to use it for this. Figured I'd show you guys how to do some tongue and groove, so why not? So what we're going to do is take our short pieces, butt them up against the stop block, and then run it through, and then flip it over, run it through again, and then we will have a perfectly centered tongue, the same depth and thickness as the groove that we made in the adjacent pieces. We've got the dust frame assemblies ready to put together here in a little bit, but before we do any kind of assembly, we've got to get the rabbets cut on the sides. Now, they are going to get rabbets on 3 sides, the top, the bottom, and the back. And the back is going to accept another 1/2 inch sheet of plywood to give it some stability. We're also going to cut rabbets in the dust frame assemblies to accept the back, but we don't necessarily have to wait until they are put together to do so. We're just going to take 2 out of the long sections and run them through for rabbets at the same depth as we're running this. We've got the rabbet cut for the back. We went ahead and did the top and bottom simply to remove some material, but because the top and bottom is going to receive a 3/4 inch thick and not a 1/2 inch thick like the back, we're just going to move the fence over to accommodate that size. And I've already test fitted and pre-cut one of the tops, so we'll go ahead and cut the bottom, and then we'll just go back and forth until we're done. Almost time for me to call it a night. It's almost about 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to work during the evenings just to kind of get this stuff done. But before I leave for the night, what I'm going to do is assemble these dust frames and just let them cure and dry overnight. We're going to reinforce them with a couple of brad nails, and they won't be very long, just enough to hold them in place while the glue sets up. Okay, there you have it. Dust frame fully assembled, clamped, and nailed, ready for cure tonight. So, like I said, I want to call it a night and come back tomorrow and we'll assemble the whole thing. So, I'll see you then. Alright, we've got the back attached and we're just going to check for square one more time. 50 3/4 long. 50 3/4 long. So we're perfect. This box is now a square cabinet. Back is attached. All we have to do is attach the slides and the drawers. So this cabinet's ready for install as well. All right, it's time to make the cabinet that's going to go up underneath the table saw. And whenever I did this story stick, there's one thing that I didn't account for, and that's right down here. This handle right here is responsible for making my blade tilt left and right for the angle cuts. Now, whenever I made the story stick, I made the mark that's going to end right here, which is the edge of the actual table itself on the table saw. But the handle sticks out probably a good maybe 4 or 5 inches past that point to allow for my hand to be able to move it. Because of that, I'm going to have to take a little bit of measurements off of my router table, since I've already made the cabinet that's going to sit over here, and it's kind of oversized, but that was just because of I didn't think about that handle. Since I have to make sure that I can accommodate the table saw sitting right on top of the cabinetry that I've already made, I had to make a story stick to be able to let me know what measurements I need to do. So I went ahead and made the 3-inch thick top, and I measured for the thickness of the table saw box, and then I measured down here the thickness of the cart, and what I'm left over with is the dimensions for my cabinet. Okay, now I've already ripped a strip that's 19 inches wide, and we're going to rip our crosscut now to 27 inches long, because the cabinet's going to be 27 inches deep. Okay, now it's just time to cut the back. And now the front. Alright, now we're going to cut the top, and it's going to be 26 inches by 23 inches. This will accommodate the dust collection hole for the port that will go inside of it. Alright, with all the pieces cut, we're ready to make the rabbets that are going to go on the certain pieces to accommodate each other. And what I've done here is I've just taken the worst side. If it's got chip out or something, that's the side that I picked for the inside of the cabinet. And I've marked it back, front, sides, and then I've put X's on the sides that are going to have the rabbets. And because this is kind of a weird cabinet, how I'm going to have these rabbets oriented, I wanted to make sure I didn't screw up. So everywhere I see an X, that's the side that's going down up against the fence. When you make sides for cabinetry that are going to have rabbets, you need to make sure that your sides mirror one another. If you have a rabbet that's going to go over here on this end, make sure that you put this piece side by side with it, and the rabbet goes on this end. So when you go to put it together, they'll match. Alright, the box is now assembled. We just need to make the 2 cross members that are going to go here. We'll just pocket screw those into the sides. And then we'll also put a couple of 2x4s where the table saw is going to sit, just to reinforce that. Just going to cut 2 strips that are 4 inches wide and 22.5 inches long. Now we're just going to cut 2 pocket screws in each piece, so we'll have something to attach it to the box. Now we went ahead and cut 2x4s for the supports and screwed those in with 3-inch screws. And as you can see, we've attached the brackets for the bottom. So as you guys can see, I am loaded up on cabinets. I've only got one more to make, and that is the router table. We'll do that next week. After the router table assembly, we will go ahead and start the drawer assemblies for all the cabinetry, and then we'll also put in the dust collection system for this cabinet. So until next week, guys, if you like this episode, be sure and click that thumbs up button. Leave me comments, and if you have any questions regarding any of my episodes, I will do a Q&A episode sometime in the middle of the week, and I'll answer anything that you guys have. So until then, be sure and check me out on all my social media, and I will see you next Monday.